All right, hey everybody, and welcome to the 90-minute art challenge. This one, I always say it's a special one, but this time I really mean it because this is a Lightbox Expo challenge, everybody. And today we have a special guest for our special event, the one and only Iris Compiet. Hey, Iris. And so I usually am the one to kind of introduce the challenge today. But since this was kind of like, this is in your realm, we're doing this because of you, maybe you can kind of tell everybody what the challenge is. Is that cool?
A fairy, because I paint fairies and I do not do digital. So I wanted everybody to join me and create a fairy with traditional media. And we came up with the idea of an exchangeling fairy, which is a play on the words exchange, to exchange, but also a changeling. And a changeling or exchangeling is a fairy that likes to collect things and keep some and take things from you or from anybody, and leave something in return, and could be anything. And I would have loved, I want to see what people do, and it could be an exchangeling could steal your dreams and leave something else. It could steal your teeth and leave something. Maybe a tooth fairy is an exchangeling, all that kind of ideas. And I'm super excited to see what people actually came up with, because this is not just a painting challenge, but also a story challenge. I think it's a challenge to push yourself in all ways.
Yeah, and especially nowadays, there's so many more people painting digitally because it's so easy to just like open up your computer and everything. So part of that challenge is to break out the traditional mediums.
Yes.
Yes. It's a good excuse.
Definitely.
And it's special when I got my partner in crime over there, Jim Dominakos, joining us on a stream, co-owner, co-founder of Lightbox Expo. Hey, Jim, just want to say hi.
Hey, how are you?
Great.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see. I've been a little bit by Brian. It's really amazing what people have come up with. I absolutely love seeing. I think you're right. Like there's honestly some magic that comes from seeing like pencil and watercolor to paper, and it's going to be really cool to see some of these entries. I'm excited.
Now, everybody, make sure you stay till the end, because in the end of this, we are going to give away our paintings. Each of us will give our paintings away to different people, and we'll be just doing like a random draw. Who are we going to be drawing from? We're going to be drawing from the Discord community, the Lightbox Expo Discord community. Come join in on the Lightbox Expo Discord community to, study, make friends, get better in art. And everybody that participated, the deadline was like a couple of days ago or something, and everybody submitted their stuff here. So we're going to be going over that stuff towards the end of the stream. Don't you worry. Can't wait. I actually have not looked at everything yet, so my reactions are going to be so genuine.
Same. I've seen a couple and they were amazing. Each and everyone did all they could do, and it was a joy to see. And absolutely. I popped in to answer some of the questions, and to see people get enthusiastic about fairies and about storytelling, and even about doing something traditionally, that was, that warms my heart. That warms my cold heart. It's so amazing to have people enjoy the process of creating with media that you can't really control. So it's wonderful.
Masae, I didn't know yours was a collabo with your cat there.
With my cat, yeah, leaving a bit of footprints here and there.
Love it.
But I think the best part was so the moderators, they went out of the way to organize these weekly events to gather people who wanted to all paint together traditionally, and they would have separate rooms where people can hang out, and they would put on their camera and talk about their ideas, show their process, throw their supplies, and just that itself was just I loved how everyone took time out of their day to just gather and into that community and do the same stuff. So I think that was like my favorite part, seeing that all happen on Discord.
So cool. And my favorite part turned out to be my least favorite part, which is giving away my painting in the end, because I really actually like this. I was like, man, it would be so cool if we could just give it out to somebody in the world. And, it doesn't matter if they're not the best painter or drawer. As long as people are trying, putting in that effort, right? Everybody gets an equal chance. We're just going to make a lucky draw. And I got my little bowl of, names here now. Thank you to Kay for helping me fold. Big shouts out to Kay. Thank you. It was a lot. Yeah. Also, we have the Discord community here. So why don't we, open it up for some conversation? How did everybody did anybody have any feelings about the experience of painting traditionally and that kind of thing? Or a question for
It's cricket
or whatever.
No, it was really great to paint traditionally. It's been a long time. It has been a long time, and really liked it.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Making us stretch once again. Thank you so much for this challenge, because getting into digital art, it was digital for so long, I almost forgot what it was like to touch paper again. So it was a really great experience.
Yeah. I am the same way. It's been a really long time. And then last weekend, the weekend that just passed, I did another traditional painting. And I'm sure that the second one wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the first one, because of this challenge.
Oh man, you all came to the dark side.
I love this dark side. I'm actually working on another painting too for Valentine's.
Oh man, I'm so proud of you all.
Oh yeah.
This is yes, people, more traditional, more playing with pigments and water and splashing about. It's almost like having fun. It's taking away from. It doesn't feel like work, even though it's work. I mean, I do this all the time for clients, but it doesn't feel like work, because it's like, it's just play. It's wonderful. It's still me when I was a kid, playing with those little watercolor sets, you got from Target or whatever, the cheap sets. My sets got a little bit more expensive now, but it still has a similar feeling to it, and it's wonderful to hear that people are really enjoying it. So, yeah.
I think the best part about doing traditional for me for this challenge was it took out that perfectionist side of me, because once I put a brushstroke down, especially with watercolor, it's kind of hard to remove. So being able to accept that and kind of move forward was very nice. It was just it made me a bit more confident, and it made me have fun. And I think I need to apply what I'm learning in traditional to my digital, so I don't get caught up in the undo button and all the adjustment layers and all that.
You know what's funny? It's I was gonna just say real quick, when I was first starting to digital paint, I thought about my traditional painting knowledge. I was like, okay, translate it to this digital medium. And now I find myself doing the opposite, right? Doing a traditional painting and trying to translate, okay, this is my opacity now, and I'm trying to turn it down to this much. Yeah, it's cool. Sorry, Jim, you're saying?
Think about these things in
I'm sorry. I'm messing up the stream, I think.
It's okay. There's just like there's all kinds of good Terry. I was going to say the interesting part for me, even just like sort of amateur, you rely control Z. You rely on that button for all the little things, and every time you put watercolor wash on, like you're committing that, and it's it gives you such a feeling when you're creating this. I think this challenge has been really interesting for a lot of people who I'm used to that the safety net of Control Z.
I think you're cutting in and out. Is that just on my side, or is that on?
Yeah, just a bit cutting out.
Oh, okay.
I caught most of it.
But yeah, we caught the gist of it for sure.
Yeah.
I love what Jim just said, because for me, painting is like meditation. And you have to be in the moment of painting. You can't really lose track, or you have to be like present, if that makes sense. Because you have to react on that very moment, on when you're putting down those layers. You have to know when there's a certain window of time where you can just dab away excess pigment, and if you go over that, past that window, there's nothing to do, and you have to work with what you've got. Whereas digital, it's you can fiddle until whatever. So it's you have to be in the present, you have to be in the now, you have to be really focusing. And for me, it's a way of zoning out and just putting everything that's happening around me, and with the lockdown and COVID and everything, all that bad stuff, it's for a couple of hours a day, it's non-existent. And to me, that's so wonderful, because it's me and my painting, it's me and my paint. We're working together to create something that might, put a smile on people's face. And I like the fact that you have to be present, and you have to know what you want to do, but also be open to responding to what's happening in front of you. So it's a life lesson. I sound like Bob Ross here.
I love it. It's great. It's very. It's like. It's like philosophical Bob Ross. It's like. And when you're saying that, I almost picture like doing watercolor painting, kind of like slow motion surfing. Like, you got to catch your opportunities. You're not in control of the paint. You're only trying to surf the paint. You're only trying to,
guide it,
ride the wave and guide it. Yeah, it's going to do what it's going to do. And you got to be in that moment. So there's times where, like, no, I can't get up. I can't do that other thing, because right now is the moment. And if I wait 30 seconds later, the moment changes.
Yeah. Yeah. And it really does, because when you're painting it with watercolors, every single thing is affecting your watercolors. Like the humidity in your studio will affect the outcome of the piece. So all these things are very important. Like when it's 30 degrees Celsius outside, it'll be more difficult to paint. I can tell you that. Because your water just, it dries up really quickly. So there's all these things, these tiny variations that are that change the outcome. To me, it's true magic. And it doesn't have to be perfect. There's perfection in not being perfect. It sounds so weird, but it is. There's something beautiful about a wash that's not quite. It just informs you about a shape, and then your mind is asked to fill in the blanks. And I think that's something that's easily overlooked when you're doing digital, where you can zoom in and 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 like really detail every single pixel. Whereas when you're doing watercolors, you can't obviously detail everything, because at one point the paper will say, you know what, I've had enough. You can go right ahead, and you've messed up your entire piece. So you have to. It's also knowing when to stop, knowing when things are done, and that might not always be where you thought it was when it was done. So it's definitely a philosophy almost. A philosopher. Man, I'm garbling up my words. This is Gremlin, by the way.
It's a weird day. We started kind of weird, experiencing all sorts of little hiccups that I usually don't experience during the stream. Must be the fairies. Must be.
It definitely is the fairies.
No.
Somebody was saying Bob Ross is not philosophical, Bobby? Okay, well, I don't know. Maybe you can. I know what you're saying, and I guess he kind of is. You know what? Can I just say something about Bob Ross? If you really look into it, that wasn't his method. He took that method from somebody else. You guys know this? And he popularized the wet on wet. And everybody thinks that it was him that kind of started popularizing that. But he learned it from somebody else and took that style and put his stamp on it. And that other guy, I don't even remember his name. It's just I know that he was the originator, which kind of leaves kind of mixed emotions in my head about my wonderful painter Bob Ross that I would watch as a kid.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd never heard that.
Yeah.
But still, his expression, happy little happy accidents, it's still my mantra.
Absolutely.
What I try to. Oh, I made a mistake. Well, that's a happy accident.
Yeah. But
That's a good
Bobby.
Bobby isn't.
Are you trying to cancel Bob Ross?
I'm not trying to cancel Bob Ross. I'm just saying.
No, just kidding.
Yeah, I'm just trying to say the info I know.
It's good trivia.
It's a funny thing. It's a funny thing. Like Roald Dahl, the person that created Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and all these things. If you look into it, he's said some anti-Semite stuff, in the past. And it's like, okay, well, I still like the stories. I'm still a fan of the stories. And, if I have to be totally honest, there's racist people in my family, in my past, maybe not like crazy racist. I don't know where this is going, but I'm just saying, nobody's perfect. And
No one's perfect.
I like to look at the good things in people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
That's true.
I don't know where this is going. I just like to be a positive person. Now I'm just backpedaling. So why don't we go on to some questions? You like that
Actually,
segue?
I have a question for Iris. When you're talking about humidity makes a difference with the watercolor, like that outcome of it. In your studio, do you have something that sets it at the same humidity all the time, or is it just whatever you work with?
Yeah, I have to work with what I've got, because to have a setup like that, it would be so extremely expensive. But I know when I can or can't work. So if it's really in summer in the Netherlands, lately we've been having 40 degrees Celsius in summer in the Netherlands, which is, as soon as I put some water down on the paper, it's just, before I've got the pigment loaded up, it'll be dry already. So those are moments I can't work. So you have to work during different times of the day when it's less warm. But obviously, storing your paper is very important, because humidity and all these things will affect the paper, because I use mostly cotton-based papers, and these have a gelatin. They're treated with gelatin, so it takes the watercolors, but it doesn't seep in and doesn't spread. But gelatin is a natural product, and that can that can be affected by all these things and can actually deteriorate. And I've had it happen where I had to scrap a lot of paper that was just unusable because that sizing, they call it sizing, was just deteriorating. And whatever I did, I could do 2 layers of color and it would take no more. So it's very frustrating because one of these sheets is about $10. And that's what you throw out. And then not be counting the day you're spending on it or the days you're spending on it. So yes, I've had that happen. So all these things are important to keep in mind. And but when you do this more often, you know which paper acts like a certain way, and each paper has a different use, has a different property that I can use for a certain thing. So it's a lot of testing. So it's not cheap at all. But no, I don't have a way of controlling the environment of my studio. So it's better like, oh, how does it feel in the studio today? But I do have a little humidity checker, and you know I know what the humidity is.
Right.
And you balance things out a little. You open a window, you put fire, you know, all those things.
I see.
Are there situations where you would use hot press paper versus cold press paper?
Yeah. Usually when I'm working for magic, for instance, or even this one I'm painting now, here, I did that on hot press. I enjoy hot press a lot because it hasn't got a texture.
Nice and smooth.
Yeah, it's very smooth, and you can go in and have really, really detailed details, like the fur. And I knew I wanted to have that in this piece. Whereas cold press is more for loose washes and when you do things that, you know, demand that kind of feel to it. And when I do client work for magic, for instance, I can't have that texture because that shows up in a scan. So that will create a shadow, and you have to digitally get that out, and it's too much work. So yeah, you have to know what works and what doesn't.
So what would be the purpose of using like a cold press? Like I have my own thoughts, but I would love to know.
Oh,
yours.
I rarely use cold press myself.
Oh.
But when I do, it's because I want some more expressive shapes and not as detailed. I want more of a feeling and a mood, and I feel I can do that better with cold press. Maybe it's just the idea I can do that better with that paper, but it's wonderful for big washes and to play wet and wet and stuff like that. That's when I use cold press, and I have one type of paper that's called Schulahama, and that paper actually breaks. So if you bend it, it'll break in two. So it's very, very how do you call that? Fragile. But you can lift up the pigment really easy. It's so soft and it's so wonderful, and you can really create cloudy, soft washes. So it's perfect for clouds and mist and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like so it is easier to do big washes on like a cold press.
Yeah, I find that's my experience. Yes, probably somebody else may say no, it's not true, but my personal experience is yes, cold press is easier for big washes and
that's
moods
what I
and
found.
Yeah.
Same.
And then have you ever mounted your watercolor paper onto like wood or something so you could throw buckets of water onto it?
That's always what I do, and I actually have a couple of boards here. I can show you if you want to.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'm curious. What do you mean by mounting, Bobby? Is it like taping or?
Usually, like what I would do before would be I would put gesso. I just gesso the wood, and then I'd put gesso on one side of the watercolor paper. But you got to be very careful not to put any on the side that you're going to paint on, and then you stick them together with the paint.
Oh, you do it like that? Oh, I never do that. I never mount my paper onto board. But when I start painting, so I use MDF or marine ply, and I cut a sheet of paper, thoroughly wet it both sides, and then use brown tape, paper tape, to stretch it. And when paper is wet, it will, become bigger, or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
It'll expand, and then when it dries, it contracts again to its original size. And because if it's taped to the sides, it'll be really, really flat. And when you start painting and really load a lot of water on it, it won't buckle. You'll end up with a completely flat piece in the end. But what you're doing is actually, you're mounting the piece on wood.
You can literally throw a bucket of water on that, and it will not ripple at all, right? In your case, that also works, but if you throw buckets of water on, it'll still kind of bubble up a little bit, right?
No, not really. I've not had any. I generally don't throw buckets of water on my pieces.
Yeah.
But usually, this is how I work. Is I haven't got the space to keep mounted watercolor pieces or ship them. If I sell one and I need to ship these are very expensive to ship. So it's all practical as well. And I to be honest, there's a couple of new things around, like Aquaboard, I think, which is a pre-gessoed panel and has you can use it for watercolors. And then I have this wonderful stuff here. Let's see if I can find it. It's so good to be in my studio and do this. You can see everything. This is a watercolor ground. So basically this, you can prepare any surface you want and just paint on it with watercolors. It is not exactly the same as paper, but it's fun because I've painted on wood, directly on wood with watercolors because of this.
That's so cool.
Wow.
And it comes in different colors and stuff like that. It's translucent. You have white ones, you have translucent ones, black ones, I think. And
that's neat.
So this is fun stuff.
I've never heard of that. I've never heard of
that. You guys just have a computer with a program and some brushes. I have everything.
You just collect them all. I love it.
It's like the cookies from the dark side, but I have, fun stuff that's very expensive, but so much fun to work with.
Just getting your hands in it. I actually have another technical question, but the board that you just showed, when you're done, do you just peel the tape off like you normally would, or do you have to like apply heat on it, or? Well, because I've had times where I peel the tape and it just rips my painting and it just like rips my heart out.
Oh yeah. Well, if you have that problem, I have the perfect tape for it, and it's low-tech tape. Always use low-tech if you're taping your piece. So always use low-tech tape for the taping of. I wish I could show you now, but the only thing I have with low-tech tape is actually NDA, so you can't do that. But what I do when I mount a piece like this, I leave room for me to, I never paint to the sides, because this paper, you can get rid of it, but you have to wet it again and then carefully remove it. But I usually just cut these sides off.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah, but
you can work on a much bigger piece of paper.
It is possible to remove, but it's very tricky, and I wouldn't advise to do so. But I always leave a couple of centimeters around the edges, and then use low-tech tape to tape those edges, so I have a nice white border around it. And then, just cut those brown tape edges off, and it's done.
Awesome, thank you.
Very cool. And also, perhaps this would be a good time to just kind of mention that if you are interested in learning more from Iris, then you can actually go to Schoolism, which is our sponsor today, and you can check out her class. She has a really awesome class there that I've taken as well. Or it's more like a workout, just like an athlete. You want to work out in the gym, you can go to schoolism.com, go to Artist Workout, find this little avatar here, Faery Workout with Iris Compiet. And then you can just sign up there and you can paint along with her. There's a whole bunch of really awesome exercises and you get to paint her drawings, right? Which is great if you stink at drawing, then that becomes a real helpful thing.
It's just fun to not have to think about what you're going to draw and just focus on the painting itself. It's just, just paint a gnome. Here's the gnome. Go ahead, paint it.
And it really got me out of a big artistic funk as well. So I know I told you this already, Iris, but thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I've been seeing so many people posting on Instagram and Twitter all over, and yes, it's not a class. I'm not telling you how to paint certain things or but more small tips here and there, and it's more about having fun. Like painting is so much fun. Like playing with that medium. Well, you guys said it. Like you had fun doing this, and you're now painting new pieces every week almost.
Oh damn! Every week now? Oh shit! Okay. I'll try to keep that up.
Bobby. Chop chop. No, but it's about fun and about creating. Like it doesn't have to be perfect. It's just doing the thing.
Yep. I'd love to include the Discord community in here. Any questions about anything? We also have on here Jim, that's been quietly on the side, chilling out.
Yeah, I'm just I'm here to help and make sure everything's going well.
Hey, Bobby.
Hey.
Hi, Iris, Masae, Jim. I had a question about brushes. So I didn't get an opportunity to finish a piece. I sketched it out a bunch of times digitally, unfortunately, Iris. But when it came to looking up brushes for watercolor and that, because I had never been into it, I was getting all kinds of like mixed feedback when I'd go online. Squirrel hair, sable.
Oh.
What would you recommend for somebody that doesn't want to continuously keep upgrading their brushes, but would like to jump in and be able to handle the medium without getting frustrated?
So your brushes are just a tool. So I've painted with synthetic brushes for a long time. I still use synthetic brushes, and these are $2 brushes, and they work wonderfully. The thing is with watercolor brushes, they are very, very expensive. They have properties, they need to hold water and pigment very well, and the real expensive ones are amazing. They're Kolinskis, they're real sable brushes, and you have to pay a couple of like $40-50 easily, which is not really something I would advise to start with. But Princeton, I'm not sure if I can mention brands, but I've bought a couple of brushes when I was in the US, and I think it was Dick Blick. They had these Princeton brushes, and they have a really good line of synthetic brushes that are really good for watercolors. I think it's called Princeton Aquas, and I really enjoyed those. So they're very low cost, and they do the job.
Perfect.
And it really isn't that the tool makes the art. So it does make art easier. So good paper, good brushes, good watercolors, they make things easier. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't create with a cheap watercolor kit from Target, or a discounted block of watercolor paper, or you don't have to go and buy the $10 sheet of paper to start with, because it will be so crushing if you which you probably do when you start your first piece, it will, watercolor is a beast. It is, you have to tame it. You have to understand how it works, and it isn't easy. Just like digital, you have to learn first. You can't jump in and be a master at it from the first piece.
I was cringing even asking you the question of what brushes do you use.
Don't worry. I love talking about brushes, but it's one of the first questions everybody asks, like, what brushes are you using? I've been thinking about just having my old brushes that I, don't not use anymore, and then put them in a little case, and then the magic brush, and sell them for really, really a lot of money.
There you go.
Probably,
Well, thank you for answering my question.
Yeah, I go and check out those Princetons, and there's a couple of really good Escoda. Yeah, Escoda in Italy makes really good brushes, natural brushes, but also they have a really good line of synthetic watercolor brushes. So nowadays techniques are really good, and there's a lot of synthetic out there that's really, really good to as an alternative to the natural hair brushes, and they're so much cheaper.
Thank you, Iris.
I'll try. I'm actually a brush snob when it comes to watercolor brushes, because like I've used bad watercolor brushes and they just don't hold water, it's just like, and then I grab one of my Kolinsky brushes that I love, which
show my
you see
brushes.
Were those Kolinsky brushes that I saw?
No, these are Kolinskys. These are.
I knew you had some of the good stuff back there. Talking about your synthetic stuff. No, I know what you're saying. I know you believe it. I'm just trolling you a little bit, but yeah.
Look at that sexy box it comes in.
Oh, you see what I mean? It's like you want to wear some white gloves to hold that nice Kolinsky box.
Dude, I actually paint with white gloves on.
Oh, you see what I mean? This is why you guys all need me to be in these streams, to ask all these other questions and dig in. Because like I got my brushes for sure. Oh.
The reason why I'm doing this
Yep.
is because your hand has oils.
Yep.
And it will affect the paper when you're touching it. So when you're sweating, or the oils from your hands will affect the sizing of your paper. So that's why I'm using just a white glove, snip off some of those fingers, and just have these two. And it looks really cool and professional, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
It does.
Again, welcome to the dark side.
Yeah, I remember spending a fortune on Kolinsky brushes in Paris at the store that Pablo Picasso made his, his oil paints and stuff. And I was so hyped because like everybody behind the counter, they all wore these white lab coats. And they look so official. And when you really look into it, I think you could find a video online somewhere probably where it's about the women that make the Kolinsky brushes. And then you're like, oh man, yeah, I want to get one of these, because it's less than 10 women in the entire, 10 people, human beings on the entire planet that can make Kolinsky brushes. And if you wanted to learn, you gotta be an apprentice for multiple years before you can start making these brushes. Now, synthetic, what? Does not compare. But hey, if you're just starting off, get the synthetic stuff.
Come on.
No, I'm a snob. I admit it. I love my Kolinsky brushes.
Yeah, I do.
You know what? I think when I first started off with watercolor, I definitely bought like the cheap sets that we can get at the local art store. But I think after getting used to that and getting just used to the medium of watercolor, the moment I upgraded to like a really nice brush, like remember when Carcamo came to Toronto, Bobby, and he told us to get the pedigree?
Yes.
That just changed everything for me. But I feel like I wouldn't have noticed that difference, and it wouldn't have made my pieces like look a certain way if I didn't go through like the very basic tools and just learning the basic stuff before I get to like the really nice stuff. It's kind of like when we talk about the round brush on Photoshop. When we get used to that, then all the texture brushes that are available in our tools just it like we can push it even further and we know how to use it. So, you know, I feel like cheaper brushes aren't necessarily bad either.
No, they're not bad, and it's when you're just starting out, you tend to abuse your brushes. I have certain techniques that I have in my painting that really abuse my brushes. I am not going to use my very expensive Kolinskis with those techniques. So I have cheaper brushes for that technique.
Wow. What kind of, can you give us an example of your most destructive technique?
Oh, it's like, you know, spattering and just really dry brushing, like really
scumbling.
It is very
no. Okay.
But it creates wonderful textures. Obviously, I don't do that with my Kolinskis, and I give my Kolinskis a thorough wash every single piece I'm done with. Like, I gently wash these with a special soap underneath. You know, it's put them back into their shape. I'm talking about these brushes as if they're babies, but they are.
Yeah.
They're expensive.
You have to use like only artisan well water to wash your brushes. You can only use locally sourced.
I am going to use this like demineralized water a lot, like because hardness of the water also affects your painting. How much minerals are in the water is actually going to affect your piece as well, and your brushes and everything. So I sometimes use demineralized water and stuff like that, or I cook my water beforehand, let it cool, and then use it. I know, it's silly.
This is all done with Fiji water.
It's funny because in the chat,
very expensive.
Someone asked like, what kind of water do you use? It's funny that you bring that up.
Yeah, digital painting, I am not a snob at all. With digital painting, I'm just like, yeah, any software, any whatever, it doesn't matter. Go do this. When it comes to watercolor, I am so particular because I really love it. You know, I've done it a lot in the past. It's just been a while.
So what kind of watercolors do you prefer to use? Because there's a lot of brands and everybody is like, oh, this is my favorite brand and this is my favorite brand. And the thing is with watercolors, they have the same colors. So for instance, indigo. But you'll see a difference between each indigo per company. And it's very big sometimes. And I get the question a lot, like, which watercolors do you use? But I even make my own watercolors.
Yeah.
So I actually mold the pigments into the oil and into the binder to make my own colors and my own variations. But I'd love to hear what you guys love to use.
You know, if it's not in the studio, if it's in the studio, I would prefer tubes, right? Because you can get more consistent with your colors. And when it's like traveling, just a little mister with blocks, and they could be cheap because I'm just, I'm trying to be mobile.
So the blocks is the pans like I'm using, or is that those little papers with a little bit of color on it?
Oh no, like what you're using, like the pan.
Oh, because
you
I
could
fill my
drop in the
pan.
little pucks in there. Is that?
Yeah, I fill my own pans. I buy empty half pans or whole pans, and then I use a tube to fill my pans because otherwise I'd be going through those and like I eat those things.
Oh, don't eat them. Don't eat them. They're not good for you.
Be one with the paint.
That's
Well,
awesome.
no, I've been known to drink my water that I use to rinse my brushes. It's happened.
By accident, I hope.
Yeah, I've even had it happen with wine and stuff like that. Never, always have your distinct cups.
Oh man. Well, at least you're doing it by accident. I remember Jason Seiler telling me that, I think he was using acrylic though, but he would he would put the tip of his sable brush in his mouth, so it get a real nice tip. That's like, what are you doing? Are you crazy? That's paint in your mouth.
If it's clean, that's okay. If you've just cleaned it.
Okay. Agree to disagree on that one. I don't know.
So I'm gonna ask a question that is like, let's call it kind of an amateur question, but so when you're doing your technique for watercolor, regardless of what it is, can you translate that? Like, have you ever done then like a brush painting or an oil painting? And I know the mediums are so different, so they don't work the way. But I guess my question is, do you ever experiment with those other, let's call it styles, because they're so different from what watercolor is and how watercolor treats paper?
I do. But yeah, they're very different beasts. So it's obviously each paint does behave differently. Oils is so very forgiving, because if you mess up, you have time to just wipe it off and start over again, and you can layer and layer and layer. And I can put light colors on top of dark colors, which is impossible when you're painting just watercolors, unless you use gouache, obviously. But yeah, I've been trying to translate what I've learned in my watercolors into oils and other things, but I'm still searching and still looking at how it works, because I'm a beginner in oils, so I feel I have to understand oils first, and then first learn the rules and then break them.
Yeah. Well, and that's very much kind of like what Masae was saying, which I thought was really smart too, is there's I'll use the same kind of analogy, but like, you don't want to start your first the first time you drive stick shift shouldn't be in a Ferrari. Like you want to start with something that you're okay, like tearing up that gearbox. It's the same with those brushes. Like, you want to be able to mess them up and feel good about it versus, oh man, what did I just do? So I really appreciated the idea of like, oh, okay, well, yes, there's better brushes, or there's more fancy everything.
Yeah.
But being able to say, well, I learned on the kind of basics, and then you can actually appreciate something higher, versus if you start with the higher ones, maybe you're like, well, I'm not even sure what I'm doing here. And then you are already messing up on the best ones you could get. I find that very interesting.
Yeah, the more expensive tools will not make you a better artist. You first have to learn all the rules and all the things, and have to apply them, and then get the good tools and see how easy it actually becomes to apply all those rules you've learned, and then break them.
Mm-hmm.
Very true.
Yeah.
Hey, words of wisdom. I never knew I had it in me.
I just remember the first time I got like a Cintiq monitor, and I'm like, I'm gonna be amazing, only to realize it is not the tool that makes me better. It's just that realization.
I'm like the other way around. Like, I really feel it when I get that new tool, and maybe it's psychological. But then, when I really, really feel it is after I get comfortable and more knowledgeable and whatever, and then I go to some really crappy tools, right? Then you're like, oh yeah, it is all just in the knowledge. I'm just using chopsticks and soy sauce and painting a painting on my dinner mat or whatever, and it's actually looking not that bad. I don't know.
That could work too.
Yeah.
In the end, you don't need much to draw. It's just, you need a surface, and you need something that leaves a mark. And everything leaves a mark.
In art class, my life drawing teacher brought in this giant piece of Conte. Like, it just looked like a rock. right? And he was like, draw with this. And I was like, okay, I understand what you're saying. And he's like, no, you're going to draw with this for the rest of the week. And I was like, oh, shit, okay. But it did teach you that lesson of like, you know, yeah, it's not necessarily the tool. It's much more about what you know.
Mm-hmm.
Unless Iris comes out with her own brand of brush, then it's definitely the tool.
You know, the brushes will be green, right?
You'll never lose them.
Nope. Fluorescent green, glow in the dark. No excuse. You can create anywhere, always. Hey, that's a slogan. If somebody wants to sponsor me,
Yeah.
You know,
You're onto something.
I can't sponsor you, but I have a question.
Yeah.
Hi.
I'm so sorry. Yeah. So this challenge really brought me back to my roots with watercolor, but also made me realize my turmoil with like trying to what's the word? Put the watercolor on the computer and so what advice, because that's really been the frustration is like when you look back at your old traditional works, you're like, oh, I feel like I felt more creatively free to do more stuff traditional, whereas the digital world I feel less creatively expressive in those works. So how have you guys who have been able to do traditional to digital, like what helped you break that mental, I guess, frustration, or are you still like fighting it?
It's the back and forth. It really helps, right? Because then you start translating what you learned with the watercolor into digital and vice versa. Like when I was painting this, something that I had to adjust is, you know, with digital, you can do very, very precise things. Let me turn this down just 1% gray, right? Try to do that with watercolor, like impossible. So doing the watercolor helped me to simplify whatever it is that I want to express, right? Because you don't have as many values that you can really mess with and be in total control over.
Yeah, like with ink, you can't shrink it. You can't move it. If it's there, it's done. Let go, let God. Like it's.
That's the other thing. With traditional, with watercolors, you have to think multiple steps ahead, right, Iris?
Yep. Before you even lay down the first washes, you need to know where your whites are going to be, where your lights going to come from, where your darkest areas are going to be. So you can't go in and think, oh, I needed to highlight there because it already painted. So you have to think, have a general direction, have a general idea, and but yeah, I'm not a digital artist, so I don't have that problem. I haven't got a clue how to do it.
I got a question about tools, Iris. Like besides the brush, just the general brush and maybe a spritzer, what other kind of tools do you use? Like, do you use an X-Acto knife in any point? Do you use masking fluid? Anything interesting, special?
Oh, I sometimes use masking fluid, but masking fluid not always works on every single piece of every paper I'm using. So on the Schuler hammer, I talked about that really soft paper that breaks. I can't use masking fluid because if I rub that off, it'll tear up the paper. It's that fragile. So I don't like using masking fluid all that much, but it has its purposes and it has its uses. I like to use salt for some textures sometimes, and rubbing alcohol can give interesting textures, but also be very careful with that because it can leave. It can damage your paper as well. So there's all these things you have to think about. But things like cling film, for instance, or foil. If you have a good wash with a lot of pigment, and you put some cling film on that, and you just crinkle it up, let it dry, and take it off, you'll have wonderful textures.
Oh,
so
cool.
these things work. And it's just, what I always tell people is just take a big sheet, just load it up with some pigments, some squares with pigments. I would use an indigo, which is a really rich pigment sometimes, and just test these things. That's what works for you. X-Acto knives, you can use that. I don't ever use it because it's very delicate for your paper. But masking film that is used with airbrushing, that can work as well. Again, don't push your knife in too deep, because you'll score the paper and it'll leave indents that'll, pigment will gather in there, and you have these dark streaks. There's so many things you can try.
What about gouache? Because some people like James Gurney uses white gouache to go backwards and.
Yeah. I don't like to use gouache. I'm still learning how to use gouache correctly. So I'm actually taking a course to learn how to do gouache. So that's what even though I'm working as a professional artist in this field, I am still taking courses. I'm still subscribed to Schoolism. I'm still taking Schoolism classes, because there's still things I need to learn and I need to remind myself of. So I'm taking courses and doing things just to brush up on my skills, or learn new things, or get out of my comfort zone, which is important.
Well, I think that's a huge part of your success as well, because you have that personality of of just being curious and constantly learning. Right?
Yeah, I think it's very important to understand that when you're an artist, you are never there. Everybody's like, how am I going to get where you are now? Oh, I work a lot and I learn a lot, but I'm never where I want to be. I am where I want to be, but I'm never at the end goal. There is the end goal is when I die and I put down my last brushstroke. That's the end goal.
With
That's
your last
when I'm
breath.
done learning. My last breath. That's it. And that's hopefully not for a long time. But what makes me excited about being an artist is the fact that I know absolutely nothing, and there's this wealth of knowledge to be gained. All these materials, and I'm looking at traditional media mostly because it makes me so happy to walk into that store in Paris, France, and just smell those everything, those boxes, seeing those boxes with pastels, or seeing what does this eraser do. There's so many erasers, and each eraser has a different use, and that makes me so curious about, when I use this in that, what's the outcome? It's like being an alchemist. It's like being a scientist, just trying to find out which effect can I create with which tools. And I'm probably still searching for how to the recipe for how to turn water into wine, but it's this never-ending learning curve that some people find really discouraging, and I find it really encouraging, because it's like all this knowledge that's there, it's available, you can find it, you can get it if you're just willing to do the work and learn, and you'll only be a better artist for it. And what if you suck at oils, or what if you suck at watercolors? You've tried, now.
Yeah.
See, me being a philosopher.
I love it.
With that in mind, I think I have a question, actually. Right? So, let's say you weren't actually able to improve anymore, right? You have reached that end goal that doesn't exist, right? I understand that, but let's say, like, hypothetically, would you continue drawing if you aren't able to get better from the point where you are at now? Would you continue being an artist?
Yeah, I think I would always create, because like 5 years ago I wanted to quit pursuing a career in the arts because I wasn't going anywhere. Like, I wasn't being hired at all. And I decided, why did I even want to become an artist? And I went back to all, like, years and years and years back, like 30 years back. I was 7 years old when I decided I want to be an artist. And that feeling that I had as a 7-year-old, always drawing and always painting, that made me so very happy. And that feeling is the most important feeling to me. Like, me being happy when I'm painting, even if it's for clients, I want to be very happy in the act of painting, in the act of creating. And it's not even about the end result. So yeah, learning is a part of creating and of being an artist. And I honestly think that with each piece you make, you learn something new, and you learn something about yourself, or you learn how to do it differently, or you learn how to mess up. But yeah, I think I would be always creating. Even if this wasn't my job, I would always definitely create. And I might be working for clients, but I'm actually working for myself. But don't tell anyone.
I love that.
Masae, would you keep learning, or would you keep painting as well? Like, if theoretically you got to the tippity top of the mountain and there's nothing left to learn?
I think so. I think in my mind I've already said, like, I don't see myself doing anything other than art.
Wow.
And because I mean, I tried to pursue interior designing, which is kind of, in the art field, but it just didn't feel like right for me, and I knew I wasn't going to be happy. So just having that little spark, I always try to, like, hold on to it whenever I can. So
I don't know if I'd still want to paint and draw.
Really?
Yeah, because I know my personality is like, when things start working like clockwork, I get very uninterested, which is why I always, tinker at things, right? When it's working, then I go, maybe I could try this and add this on there, and oh shoot, that didn't work, but this one might work, and if it's the same thing, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. Thanks for answering the question. Yeah.
Yeah, that was interesting. A lot of these answers that you guys are giving is like, it's really interesting, and yeah.
I feel like, Bobby, you and I are also very similar in that. Obviously, I'm not an artist, but when it comes to any of the creative stuff that we do, or even the, obviously I've been doing conventions for a long time, but there's all these other things that I feel like when I got good at it, I stopped being interested in it.
Yeah.
Like, I'll give you a small example. Like, when I opened a comic book store back in like 2000, and it went really well. Like, it went absolutely smashing. Like, after 2 years we opened a second store, and like after another year we opened like a third store. Like, it was going really well, and by that like third year I was like, I don't know, I'm not really, like, it's like a runaway success, and I'm like, I think I'm good. And so I just had the other guys that I was partners with like take over so I could go do something else, because there was something about, like, I feel like I know it's a weird thing to say, like, I feel like I've conquered this, where I'm like, okay, well, I'm not seeing a lot of challenge here. And so now I'm starting to, like, not look forward to going to work. And thus that affects your attitude while you're there as well. And I felt good, at least, about realizing it, instead of turning into, like, no one wants to work with like the cranky, like the cranky guy. And so instead I was like, hey, listen, I don't think that this is my interest as much anymore. And I'm just going to leave it behind and let the other people who are still interested in it, keep pursuing it. So it's a really interesting thing to think about. Like, if you do get good at something, to whatever level that good means to you, it doesn't matter, you know, because it's subjective to you, not objective. That you might just say, you know what, I think I'm good. Like, this is great. I did it, and now like, sort of like, if your goal is to run a marathon, not like to finish first, but just to do it. And if you're like, okay, well, I did it, you might not like stop running forever, but maybe you're just like, well, I'm not really interested in doing another marathon. I did that. Now I just want to run for fun, or I just decided to stop running and I'm going to try basketball, or, you know what I mean? Like, I think just everyone has a different attitude about what they're happy with staying at a certain level. And there's no right or wrong answer. Like, it wasn't right or wrong for me to leave the store, but it was right for me. I mean, but there was no like judgment of, oh, well, that's dumb or that's smart. It's just, that's how I felt, and that's what I needed to do.
Yeah. For me, I don't think in my lifetime I will be able to have tested every single thing, traditional medium or even digital medium. Maybe I'll one day pick up my pen tablet and do that. So I don't envision me being done. And because of watercolors being so diverse, it's not a trick. But as soon as things become a trick, then I get bored and I find a new way to wake myself up. And just, but what you said, Bobby, as well, and Jim as well, just find something that makes it interesting again. Mix it up. Just, okay, well, I can paint on paper now. What about wood? And okay, I can paint on this scale, but what if I paint a size of 3 meters? There's so many possibilities. So yeah, I'm not convinced I'm ever done learning. I'll probably be on my last brushstroke and think, oh, I wanted to do this and that and such, and I'm not ready to go yet.
Well, this is theoretically saying there's nothing left to learn.
Yeah, but I don't, that's the theory I don't believe.
Yeah, I know, but it's like, just the situation we're dealing with. Theory. Yeah. Like, sometimes I think, when Lightbox Expo just starts working like clockwork, like, I kind of want to, not do it anymore. If I had to be just joking. You know what? It's Chinese New Year. It's the year of the bull. So I figured I'd just kind of lay in some bull on this thing. But I could see, like, it's not going to go well. So let me just stop it right there. Yeah. Anybody else have anything they want to ask or? Hey.
Hi. Can I say something?
Of course. Yes. Sure.
My name is Robles. I'm from São Paulo, Brazil. I'm in this, I don't know if I can call it this battle right now to improve myself technically in watercolor and to translate that to my voice as an artist. For example, I think you guys might relate to that. For example, it's hard to paint based on the photo reference or plein air, but I think it's even harder to create your own illustration in watercolor. And that's what I'm trying to do now. I'm trying to improve in this technique and translate that to my own style. Any thoughts on that?
You could take Iris's watercolor painting class or workshop, workout.
I think it's about not overthinking things. So it's easy to just be very focused on having to create something that is right, and you want to translate it to your style, and you're busy with seem very busy with the end result already without having started. Correct me if I'm being completely an idiot here, but it is oftentimes my process, for instance, starts with my sketchbook, where I just sit down and let my pencil wander and just go and create something. If I interpret your question correctly, you're having trouble creating from your imagination. Is that right?
Yes, that's it.
Yeah. And oftentimes it's just inspiration can be found everywhere. And even going to a zoo and create, like, do live drawings from lions and stuff, and turn those lions into griffins and go from there. But you have to start somewhere, and for me, sketching is the very first beginning before even going into watercolor. So I sketch my idea, I create my story in my sketchbook, and then I translate it into my watercolors. So yeah, maybe a couple of steps back and try to. I really enjoyed Ian McKegg's drawing workout. By the way, I'm plugging this one. It was really fun to do. But Bobby, do you have any ideas?
Yeah, it seems like the fundamentals is this person's issue, right? And fundamentals of light, structure, texture. I think those would be the three things that you want to kind of tackle first, because that's there's various fundamentals for everything, different kinds of fundamentals for automobiles versus characters. But those three things, light, texture, structure, those encompass every subject. So get those down first. And then the other thing I would kind of mention there, because especially if, like, Portuguese is your first language, Carcamo has a Portuguese watercolor course, workout thing on Schoolism as well, where he teaches specific watercolor techniques, very much fundamental, and you'll come out like a beast after finishing that workout.
Yeah. I think one thing I wanted to add was, like, especially with traditional, because and especially with watercolor, and if it's your first time, it's hard to know what kind of, like, outcomes you get based on how much water you use, how much pigments you use, what brushes do you use. So I think one thing I would recommend is actually, like, taking the time to just test out things. Like, what I usually do is I do, like, watercolor swatches, because sometimes I have no idea, like, what kind of colors mix with what, or, like, how water reacts on certain paper. So just even doing that, you can find something like, oh, this bleed is, like, really cool, so I want to apply it to this kind of, like, thing that I have in my mind. So and because it's like you're not really committed to an actual piece, it's a lot more freeing. And once you do that, you start to understand how to control, like, these mediums. So
Wow, you're so organized, Masae.
Yeah, I think I just couldn't get certain colors in a certain way, so I took, like, my weekend, like, 2 hours or an hour maybe, to just do stuff like this.
So impressed. I'm so impressed.
It's definitely helped. It helps a lot.
Geez, another thing I'm really impressed about are all these entries. I figured we could take a look at these various entries and decide on a winner and stuff. I've just been showing them as we've been talking, but I'll just keep showing them. And if you like, this is funny, right? That's really cute.
Well, it's nice that it's random, so we don't have to worry about choosing it, because I think already I would be like an impossible choice of the sheer amount of there's so much creativity in so many of these. Like this one, like she's hiding. It looks like the Exchangeling is trying to like hide from the cat.
Yeah.
So it doesn't get. And it's cool to put your own, like everyone's written some stuff, which is nice, but also really interpreting the story is half the fun of any of these. It's so cool.
I'm so proud of everybody that participated in this. You know, you put in that effort. That's what it's really about. That person that was just, you know, asking about painting things through imagination, through watercolor, you know, doing things like this and just always kind of saying, yes, I will try to do some paintings, as opposed to vegging out, you know, watching whatever Netflix thing or playing whatever game. You know, the best game, the best show is life, isn't it?
I'm thinking we should do this every month. This is just, I'm seeing these and I'm amazed. I'm blown away. And super proud of everyone.
They're so funny. Like, some of them are so funny.
I'm so happy we're drawing these names just out of the hat, because I you know, it's some of these are technically amazing, others are so funny and have a great story. It's a lot.
Yeah, especially with like over 100 entries, I feel like I said, like sort of impossible task of choosing. They're so different. I mean, I think, you know, like that one was like more of like a character piece, and this is, you know, like it's kind of like a pin-up, and it's like, oh, they're just so cool.
It's great. Oh, is this the sketch? I guess. Oh no, I think that's the. I'm not sure. Work in progress. That is really.
That little cap hat is.
Yeah. Design was great.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that one. It's adorable.
Little wooden hat.
Very happy with that diamond ring.
Yeah, upgrading. You know, like only has a button for a hat.
And a diamond
I'm
ring
kind of
has a belt.
curious to ask Bobby and Iris, like, where did your ideas come from, or what was your like thought process when you were thinking of like the story?
I think I probably told you mine. Bitcoin, Dogecoin. It's like cryptocurrency was going nuts at that point, and I was like, yeah, I'll paint a little Dogecoin in this little fairy hand.
That's awesome. Yeah, well, I didn't want to do a very gross one, but I ended up doing a really gross one, and I couldn't help it. It's not my fault. This just happened. This showed up one morning. I saw something rummage in my bathroom. Again, the cap of my toothpaste was gone, and that's the one to blame. He loves dental floss, and he just, you know, rummages around in my bathroom bin, and I'm sorry for the e-wax thingies. It's, you know, I'm sorry. I'm apologizing to whoever is going to get this one. I tried to tone it down, but he's very happy with his belly button fluff thing.
I love him. I would want to see him just like rummaging through my stuff, and I'll be like, "Oh, you can take that."
It feels like someone you also want to have a conversation with, just to see what they like. What are you going to do with that? I'm just curious, you know.
He tells the most amazing stories about them.
I assume so. That's why. Like, it feels.
Show you all his bottle caps. He will show you all his toothpaste caps, and don't get him started. I tell you. Don't get him started.
Good to know.
He'll talk about his favorite brand, the cap that it came from, and the one that pops up.
If it really gets down and dirty to it, like if he gets into the mouthwash, you're done for. Like, you're in there for a long time, because, you know, it's the toe clippings. He's got a really big collection. I've heard
boy.
Remember Goldmember and Austin Powers collecting his skin flakes? This whole conversation is reminding me of that.
I'm sorry.
Hey, I want to mention also my guy has collected a little kind of like a Lightbox Expo bottle cap right there behind the little Imaginism symbol. I don't know if you saw that, Jim.
Yeah.
I saw the Imaginism one. I didn't actually see the. That's so cool.
Yeah, and those mushrooms are magic mushrooms. So that's kind of fun too to paint in there.
Yeah, that's fun.
What about you, Masae?
Yeah, what about you, Masae?
Oh, I was just thinking, like, what are common things I lose? And obviously there are supplies, especially little caps, like for pens and markers. So you can see that my fairy has like a little, pouch that's using the cap to hold some flowers. Paint tubes, sharpeners, eraser. I'm sure all artists feel me. Like we somehow just lose them.
And the
Bobby pit as well.
That's right in the gut, right in the food. Always happens.
Yeah, I'm gonna get you someday.
I love it.
Yeah, that's fun to do.
Why don't we take a look at some more entries as if anybody else has any other things they'd like to mention or ask.
If it's possible, I'd like to ask Iris about her work with Brian Froud, one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah, you go ahead. What do you want to know?
Just what it was like working on the Dark Crystal Bestiary, working with anything.
Yeah, well, that was a dream come true. I got the question in 2019. If I got an email from the publisher to ask if I would be interested, and I read that. I'm like, oh yeah. I ran around the house just screaming and screeching, and turns out Brian had actually put my name forward as the artist who could do this. He wasn't really after doing the Netflix series, he wanted to do something else, and he was like, well, Edith can do it. And I had met Brian before for my Fairies book. He wrote the intro to that book, and I went to visit him and give him the book, and got to hang out with him and his wife and had a lot of fun. And we stayed in touch, basically. And I even went and celebrated Christmas in a couple of years ago, which was the best Christmas ever, because Alan Lee dropped by as well. So that was like, oh, this is my life now. But yeah, having to work on that, I had about 3 or 4 months to do everything. So that was a very tight deadline. And I visited Brian in January of 2020, just before lockdown. And I was just sitting there in his living room and showing him the sketches I had done, just to know if I had the feel of Thra, if he agreed with it. And he came out and showed me all his artwork for Age of Resistance. So I was there with a huge stack of original artwork, and I was just going through it, and it was just, Brian, would you mind just, look the other way. Look the other way. Yeah, it was absolutely a dream come true. But also, and I have to say that at first I was just, I was just trying to, how am I ever going to do this? Because this is Dark Crystal. This is what I grew up with. This is what other people grew up with. And I wanted to pay homage to the world and to the work Brian and Hansen did, and it crippled me, because I was thinking people will be so disappointed it's not Brian Froud's work, but it's my work. And that got to me for about a couple of days. And then I was like, you know what? Brian actually wanted me to do this. Brian liked my sketches. I should be able to do this. And that was the moment I just went for it and just had so freaking much fun creating it and just sketching and just trying to immerse myself into that world. And I'm super proud of the book that was the result from that. And it's it's one of those do before you die things, I think. And I am absolutely conscious about how lucky I am to have been able to do this, because this is a once in a lifetime thing. It was absolutely amazing.
It was meant to be.
Yeah.
It felt like it was meant to be. You know, like what other artist would be better to do this than you? You know, if Brian Froud is not going to do this. It's not my place to say if I'm the best one for this or not. Well, that's why you got friends like me with big mouths going, yeah, of course, that's the one. Who else?
Well, you know, the fact that Brian himself wanted me to do this, he trusted me with this world and with his creatures and with his creations. The fact that he said, you're the only one I can think of who can do this.
That's amazing.
And that was like, okay, well, can I have that in writing so I can print it out and put it in my studio wall? Because I tend to forget these things. But yeah, that's the same thing that happened recently with Guillermo del Toro giving me a quote for my book and saying these amazing things about my art. And I was like, okay, I'm printing this out. You know that, right? I'm printing this out and it's going up my wall because I need to remind myself. Because, you know, sometimes creating is hard. Sometimes things don't go as planned. And you're like, oh, I can't do this. I'm the really worst artist around and I'm a fraud and blah, blah, blah. And then you need to read those things and like, oh, well, you know, if they say it, there must be some truth to it. So yeah, that's me.
Yeah, a little kudos to Lena over here with this lovely photograph, you know, put the keys there, the brushes there. It's great. That's really cool. These designs are really cool too.
Oh, I love those mushrooms on its head. I love mushrooms. Oh. I love that some of these are also very geared toward love and stuff. Like it's wonderful to see them.
Mm-hmm.
I like how she has an Apple Pencil, but is looking at the traditional colors in that.
It's trying to make that transition. Seeking to swap out traditional for digital. Oh, that's neat.
Oh, wow.
That's really neat, huh? How you see the faces later. I love the pacing of this image. This one's really cool too.
Yeah.
It has cool perspective.
Oh.
Look at this one, huh? It almost feels digital, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it looks to be gouache or acrylics on wood.
Yeah. It's great.
Yeah. I like I just noticed the little stand, you know, the little acrylic stand.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
I like that it's painted on a tree, on a piece of tree, and it's actually this creature that is hanging all these things in a tree. That's a really small. Kudos for that.
It says Posca pens, which I'm not familiar with.
Oh yeah.
Posca pens.
They're like acrylic. Yeah. They act like acrylic, so you can like layer them to each other.
That's awesome.
That marble is very nostalgic. I feel like I don't see marbles anymore.
I'll buy you a set.
I'm all good.
Yeah. We'll play the game.
I'm just saying, I feel like I've seen a lot more marbles as a child than I do nowadays.
Oh, wow.
That's really cool texture there, huh?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
There's some granulation there.
Also, going back to the marbles for a sec, I feel like that's very much like an art school thing. Like, hey, like paint this marble, and it's got like the colors inside. I used to see that a lot when I was at like art institute. They would always have like, all right, paint these marbles. So it's like you got to get the sphere, but also all the stuff inside.
That's tough. Yeah, it's not. That's a good subject for people to try. That's funny. I love this guy's face and his haircut and stuff. It's great. I wish I could win some of these, actually, you know. How could we do a reverse Exchangelings challenge? Everybody just sends us paintings.
You give us their art.
This one's so cool, too. Very nice and clean feeling.
Yeah.
Love the style. Ooh.
Yikes.
Wow. That's what I don't want in my bedroom. The key thief.
He's got to be careful with that X-Acto.
Yeah, it's pointed at him. Oh, is that a pen, maybe?
Yeah,
Oh, it's a pen. Okay, never mind. Sorry. For a second, I thought it was an X-Acto knife. I'm like, man, that monkey is living dangerous. That Exchangeling is living dangerous.
Edge.
Oh,
cool.
Flies away with your sugar.
Ah.
Beautiful.
Oops.
Oh.
Lovely.
I love the shape of that face.
So many cool ideas.
Yeah. A lot of art thieves, that's for
So
sure.
much time on this.
I'm not wrong.
Yeah, stealing paints and stuff. Paints and brushes.
I want to know from everyone who's participated, are you going to try this again? Like, are you now inspired to paint traditionally again and you know, dive into fairies and do your thing and tell stories? I'm like, please tell me yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds
Good.
cool.
Of course. It was fun.
This is me taking up my watercolors. Do you want to paint now?
Definitely, like I have my watercolor stuff right beside my desk now.
Good. Oh, I turned you all to the dots.
Look at this one. This one's so cool.
That is nice. I think for me, when I see traditional work, it hits a spot in my heart where I'm just like, I appreciate it much more because I think because you know, obviously digital is amazing too, and the
definitely
things that people come up with is like amazing. But I think for people to actually, you know, take the time to set up the paints, to get the water, to get all the supplies, and to really slow down and to really make decisions and, you know, make marks. I think when I see people who do traditional, it's like I appreciate it like so much more. And that's why, like, Iris, I love your stuff because it's like, you know, you're so good at it and you put so much care into it, and it just like it definitely makes me want to like do it more, because if that wows me, I want to like also wow people as well.
Thank you.
It feels like you have just an endless amount of imagination. You know, that's how it feels, because like you produce so much as well. So that's really cool.
Yeah, once you get started, once I get started with sketching, seeing if I have a sketchbook here, I have one sketch informs another, one idea informs another. So when I'm thinking about fawns, and I'm thinking about what a fawn could look like and where it could live, and you start asking yourself questions about the creatures, and you start giving yourself answers, and there's multiple answers, so multiple creatures. So once you start doing this, it's like training, it's like exercising. You're training your brain to think and imagine more. And I think as a child, you were so flexible, not just your body, but also your mind, because everything was magic. You saw a stone and it was a dragon's egg, and you saw a tree and it was this huge dragon or whatever. Well, as you grow older, you're stopping yourself from dreaming and from imagining. But once you start doing that again, it'll become easier and easier and easier until there's literally no end, and you see weird stuff happening everywhere, and people say things, and you're like, immediately your imagination is taking over, and you're like, I need to write this down now. That's what happens. And then you end up with, like me, with a stack of sketchbooks with all ideas. And if you don't have any inspiration, just go through your sketchbooks and you'll have instant inspiration. And that's what I did a couple of days ago, was a stack of sketchbooks. Go through it, it's like, post it there. Oh, I can use this and this. And you end up with hundreds of post-its and hundreds of ideas you can paint. So there's no excuse of not being inspired, because you can inspire yourself. You just have to sketch.
Yeah.
Do you feel like... Oh, go ahead, Miss.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Like good ideas. Is that something that you feel people can kind of learn to start having good ideas? Because that's very kind of elusive, right? It's not like technical skills.
It is. It's very elusive, and it having good ideas. I'm not sure if I'm having good ideas. I'm just having ideas, and some are good and some are really, really bad. But you have to go through the bad to have the good. And I jot down everything in my sketchbook, and some will come to the surface, and like they speak to me, and I know, or I feel I'm onto something good when there's a story that like really speaks to me, like with that Exchangeling Faery. Its story gets develops in my head, and all of a sudden this whole creature is just a story on its own, and I can tell its story, and it's just one image, but it's so much more, and it has character, and has a backstory, and it has a family, and it has all those things. So yeah, I do think you can develop it, but some people are maybe more prone to be able to do that. But I think as artists, we definitely are able to do it, because art is ideas, and art is storytelling. You just have to train it. It's just training.
That's what I'm wondering. You know, it's like, can you train, like, I'm not talking about you, but just in general, people, can we train ourselves to have better ideas? Are there things that we can do? Just because it's like I was saying, it's so elusive, you know, like, or you can't really, you know, once somebody comes up with the same idea, all of a sudden the first person, that was a good idea. The second person, it's not a good idea.
Yeah, there's all these things that you can, an ideation and stuff like that.
And this is a great idea, by the way. Yeah. I'm going to go past this, but I just want to mention. It's amazing.
Yeah, that was awesome.
It's, I do think you can develop it, but there has to be, you have to have that talent, or there has to be something already there to develop.
That's what I'm trying to, like, you know, like, I don't know what the answer is, so I'm really curious what your opinion is.
You have to have some kind of inclination already. And I think after seeing all these wonderful entries, all these people have it. All these people come up with great ideas.
Oh, that's so great. They are so great.
Yeah. I mean, who thinks about this? This is just... And I actually read the story for this one, and it's really good. I love it.
I'm just listening in the chat, but can we give some of our input on the idea question?
Oh yeah, of course.
I always thought that maybe as an artist or as anybody being creative, sometimes we live for a long time with the misconception that ideas are just come from nothing and they're like something that you have or you don't, and you kind of feel like a bad artist or an uncreative person if you don't have them. But nothing in the world is original. It all comes from the past and what happened before and what people have said and what you've seen. So it's all a matter of input and subconscious. So when you feed your imagination, it can grow. But if you don't and you feel guilty and you isolate yourself, then it won't.
So just to be a little bit of devil's advocate, is that like saying, like I kind of equate it to like, well, if you had all the great ingredients in the world, does that make you a good chef? Maybe. I don't know. It tastes better.
But the chef wasn't amazing at his very first recipe, right? So it's a skill that trains itself once you feed it.
You have to develop your way of looking at things. How do you interpret what's been before you? What came before you? You have to develop and see and understand what went before. And you can look around you and you can hear stories, but you have to interpret those stories and have to take them and mold them and change them and turn them into your ideas or your stories. So just looking at what was and then just doing your version of what was, that's not a great idea. In my opinion, I can go to a museum and see a wonderful piece by Van Gogh, for instance, and I can say, oh, I can do that as well. That's a great idea. Paint the same, like a similar thing, but it won't be a great idea because I haven't developed that idea. If that makes sense.
It didn't come from a genuine place. Right?
Yeah, it's like it has to marinate. You have to put your own sauce on it.
But also, like, I do feel like everybody can improve their ideas. It's just that there's some people that maybe their ideas, like, they just get these things and every time they post, it's like this genius freaking idea, you know, like Iris or like Corey Loftus. Every time he posts, I'm just like, oh, that's so genius, you know, Claire Wendling or whatever.
Yeah, but maybe because some people make connections easier and it's just quicker and they hear, like, I have things where people say something and in Dutch you have a saying, hoe een koe een haas vangt, so how a cow catches a hare. And that immediately sparks my imagination. How does a cow catch a hare? Where other people would just, you know, that's a saying and that's a way of saying and how it's nothing else. But for me, it sparks my imagination and it immediately triggers my brain and my imagination to, how does a cow catch a hare?
And how does a person catch a changeling? Well, this is exactly how, by doing this challenge. And I think it's probably a good time, what do you guys think, to do the draw? Now that we've gone through all the entries. All right, well, here we go. Let me unshare my screen for a second in Zoom, and that way we can have everybody's lovely faces on screen. Perhaps we can, I think our guest of honor should go last because everybody's probably waiting for her. Let's see here. Let's go with Masae first. Okay, so here's, I'm gonna put you, you know, nice and big. Hope you don't mind, because you have a bowl or something, right? You're gonna like choose in a bowl. Okay.
Drum roll. Do you need a drum roll?
Oh yes, please. That would be nice. Are we ready?
All right. Yeah. So random winner of Masae's beautiful painting is
is Chiu. Yay! Wait, can you read it?
Siska Chiu. It's not focused. Darn it. Oh,
There we go.
Siska Chiu. Is Siska Chiu here in Discord? Well, you won.
If not, Patricia will contact this person.
Yeah, I would say I will.
Amazing. Yay. Congratulations. All right.
I'm jealous. I love it.
Shoot, how do I put myself on screen? Sorry, Masae, I know you're huge on screen right now.
Well, I love seeing your desk with all those brushes and that wonderful little drawer. And
I know this is. I just made this whole setup in the past couple months, and I love it because now I have access to all my traditional stuff that were always in my drawer. You know, it's one of those like out of sight, out of mind thing. But now this is like it's so accessible. It's made it a lot easier.
All right, here we go. Outside of Lightbox Expo over here, and choose a name. And this random name is Samantha Diaz. Is Samantha Diaz here? No? Maybe? Well, either way, you won my painting. Congratulations.
I'm jealous.
Now it's my turn, right?
Yes. Let me put you on spotlight for everybody. All right. Yes. And finally, our guest of honor, Iris's painting.
Yeah, I think this is it. This is it. Okay. And it goes to Mia.
Mia Rajic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Awesome.
This is yours.
Holy smokes.
Yay.
Congrats.
And congratulations to everybody that participated, because it's really not about the prize, is it? It's about participating and just having some fun. And I guess there's nothing else to do now except to thank the wonderful community that all participated. Great job, everybody. Huge congratulations. And of course, to our Discord mods, thank you so much for making Lightbox Expo Discord such a wonderful, safe place for us to develop and to work together and everything. Thank you to Jamie Marshall, always helpful. My amazing, you're kind of like my Robin to Batman kind of thing. You're more than that, but yeah, I'm not saying anything right today. Love Jamie. Big shouts out to Jamie. And Jim Damanakos, my partner in Lightbox Expo. Thank you for joining us. Masae Seki, our co-host. And the biggest shout out goes to our one and only, our amazing guest of honor. Let me make sure that you're on screen. I forgot you're not on screen. Iris, thank you so much for joining us and spending some time and doing a beautiful, amazing painting to give to somebody in the world.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Wonderful. And yeah, that's it, everybody. So take care. Have a great rest of your day. Have a wonderful weekend.